Archangel Michael says, finally. You open this special message sent by God. There was something strange in the air around you. Not frightening, not dark, not dramatic, but almost like the air remembered something you had forgotten a long time ago. A gentle stirring, a thin shimmer, the way a curtain moves even though the window is closed. You thought it was just imagination, the way the mind fills the spaces between sentences, but something deep inside you whispered that maybe, just maybe, this time it was different. You blinked at the message again, wondering why it made your heart beat just a little faster. There was nothing threatening in it, nothing harmful. It felt more like a symbol. A metaphor, a reminder disguised as a warning. The word said 10 minutes, but the feeling inside you said it wasn't about danger at all, it was about awakening. Something old, something buried, something powerful that you had ignored because life had demanded that you stay busy, stay tired, stay distracted. The message felt like a knock, one of those soft, patient knocks that doesn't force you to open the door but reminds you that someone is waiting outside. And you felt it in your chest, like a second heartbeat, a rhythm that wasn't yours and yet belonged to you more deeply than your own. You wondered why the idea of Archangel Michael speaking to you didn't feel absurd. It felt like a metaphor for courage. For truth, for strength you had forgotten you possessed. You breathed slowly, trying to understand why your hands suddenly felt warmer, as if you had cupped them around a small invisible flame. You weren't scared. The message said something bad was about to happen, but the feeling inside you said something else, something good, something shifting, something rising. You had been carrying so much lately, stress, doubt, disappointments that clung to you like dust you couldn't wipe away. Maybe this fictional message was just a spark, a reminder that even in stories, people discover their strength when they finally open something they've ignored for too long, whether it's a letter, a truth, or their own reflection. You closed your eyes briefly, imagining what it would feel like if an archangel truly stood near you, towering, luminous, not a figure of fear but one of absolute clarity. You imagined he wouldn't shout, wouldn't command, wouldn't threaten. He would simply stand there, patient, holding the truth the way one holds a lantern in a dark room. And he would wait for you to decide whether you wanted to see. The idea made you inhale slowly, deeply, as if your lungs remembered how to breathe in light instead of just air. The room around you felt the same, yet something inside you didn't. It was as though the fictional presence of an archangel had brushed against the edges of your thoughts, cleaning them gently, like fingers brushing away dust from a windowpane so you could see your own potential more clearly. You opened your eyes, and it was like waking up a second time inside the same day. You weren't about to run, panic, or hide. Instead, you felt like walking forward, even in an ordinary room, because something inside you felt less ordinary now. You knew, in a symbolic way, that when these stories speak of 10 minutes, they don't mean actual time, they mean readiness. They mean that the moment you decide to change something, the countdown begins. The universe doesn't change for you, you change for you, and then the universe responds. You read the message again. And this time, you didn't feel any sense of doom. Instead, you felt like it was whispering something different. Don't wait anymore. Don't delay your own calling, your own passion, your own transformation. Open the thing you've been afraid to open, not a vault of money, not some mystical door, but the truth you've been avoiding. Your strength. Your voice. Your next chapter. You felt an unexpected warmth in your chest at the thought. It wasn't the kind of warmth that comes from external praise or validation. It was a quieter fire, the fire of someone who realizes they have been asleep in their own life for too long. You thought about everything that has ever held you back. Every voice that said you weren't ready. Every moment you believed you weren't enough. Every time you waited for a sign when all you truly needed was a decision. Somehow, this fictional message became the spark that lit a fuse inside you. A fuse that led not to destruction, but to ignition. You remembered nights when you stared at the ceiling, wondering why life felt heavy even when nothing catastrophic was happening. You remembered moments when you doubted your future, when you wondered if you had missed something important, something meant for you but never opened because you were too busy trying to survive the day. But now, reading this strange symbolic message, you felt something shift. It wasn't fear, it was responsibility. It was possibility. It was the realization that the bad thing that was about to happen was simply this: if you didn't act, if you didn't choose yourself, if you didn't open the metaphorical door of your own potential, then nothing would change. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Not ever. Maybe the message wasn't about danger, maybe it was about urgency. You didn't have 10 minutes, you had now, and that was enough. You felt as if Archangel Michael, fictional, symbolic, imagined, yet deeply meaningful, had placed something into your hands. Not a sword. Not a message. Not a prophecy. But a mirror, and in that mirror, you saw someone you had forgotten, the version of you who still believed in themselves. The version who still dreamed fearlessly, the version who still trusted that life held more for them than struggle and repetition. You kept reading the words on your screen, but now they tasted different in your mind. They didn't feel like a warning. They felt like a wake-up call disguised as a myth. A way for your mind to speak to you using symbols of power, angels, messages, countdowns, so you would finally listen to the truth you were too tired to hear in normal language. You felt a small smile tug at your lips. Not because you suddenly believed angels were sending you secret messages, but because you realized something beautiful. Sometimes the story matters more than the literal truth. Sometimes the metaphor cracks open the real message inside you. You closed your eyes again, and you could almost imagine standing on a vast plain of light, the sky stretching endlessly above you, and a tall figure with wings the color of storm-forged silver stepping forward. He didn't speak with thunder. He didn't shake the ground. He simply looked at you with eyes that knew what it meant to carry burdens, to doubt, to fall, to rise again, and he said, not with authority, but with a gentle truth. The message has never been about danger, it has always been about your awakening. You stood in that imagined field of light, not fully understanding why the air felt so calm despite the message's dramatic tone. The fictional presence of Archangel Michael did not radiate fear. Instead, he radiated something steadier, like a mountain that has existed for millions of years, unmoved by storms. You felt small in front of him, but not insignificant. More like you had stepped into a version of yourself you had forgotten existed. His wings didn't glow wildly, didn't flare with fire or blinding light. They moved gently, like the slow breath of someone who has seen every century of human struggle and still believes in the possibility of each person's rise. His presence did not demand kneeling, it invited standing, and that made your chest tighten, not with fear, but with recognition, as if a memory you'd never lived came back to you. As if some part of your soul whispered, "You've met strength before, even when you didn't know how to name it." Archangel Michael didn't rush to speak. He didn't need to. The silence around him was not empty, it was full. Full of meaning, full of space for you to breathe after years of feeling like life pressed on your lungs without mercy. There was a strange comfort in the quiet, like the world had paused just so you could catch up with yourself. When he finally spoke, his voice felt like a warm wind brushing across your mind. "If you are reading this message," he said, "it means you are standing at the doorway you've ignored for too long." You swallowed, feeling the words sink deeper than expected. You wanted to ask what doorway he meant, but the answer came before the question. "The doorway to yourself," he continued. "The one you closed each time you believed someone else's opinion over your own truth. The one you locked whenever you convinced yourself to stay small so others would be comfortable." His eyes softened, and you felt seen in a way that surprised you. Seen in the way you've always longed to be seen, not judged, not compared, not measured against anyone else, but understood from the center outward. "You opened the message," he said, "but the real opening is happening here." He touched his chest lightly with 2 fingers, then gestured toward you. Something inside you began to ache. Not painfully, but like a knot loosening after being tight for years. You felt the weight of every time you doubted yourself, every dream you abandoned because it didn't seem practical, every moment you thought you had nothing special to offer. "You think," he said gently, "that your life has been ordinary." You blinked, startled. It was true. You had always felt that way, even when small extraordinary things happened. You told yourself they were coincidence, luck, accidents, not signs, not meaning, not anything bigger. "You think your struggles make you weak," he continued. "You think that mistakes disqualify you, that fear discredits you, that loneliness defines you." A faint smile touched his lips. But nothing could be farther from the truth. You felt a warmth spread slowly through your chest again, as if a candle had been lit behind your ribs. You didn't fully understand what was happening, but you didn't want it to stop. There was something deeply comforting about hearing these truths, even if they were fictional, symbolic, part of a story, and allowing yourself to believe them for a moment. Every burden you carried, he said softly, was a lesson in disguise. Every disappointment was a turning point preparing for its moment. Every night you cried alone was a night your spirit learned how to rise without applause. You inhaled sharply because the words rang true in a way that surprised you. You remembered nights when you wished someone would understand how tired you were. Nights when you carried pain quietly because you didn't want to burden anyone. Days when you pretended to be fine even though something inside you felt hollow. Michael stepped closer, not intimidating, not overwhelming, just steady. Like a lighthouse in a storm, guiding rather than demanding. There is something important you must understand, he said, and his voice lowered into something that felt almost like a secret. The message that says, something bad will happen, is a metaphor. It warns you of the only danger that truly exists, wasting your life by not living it fully. The words hit you like a wave, not harsh but transformative, washing over the dusty corners of your thoughts. The bad thing, he continued, is not a disaster. It is not an accident. It is not fate turning against you. He paused, eyes glowing with a calm certainty. The only thing that can destroy your path is delaying your own growth. You exhaled shakily. He wasn't talking about supernatural threats. He wasn't talking about real-world danger. He was talking about the quiet destruction that happens slowly, when people shrink themselves, deny themselves, silence their own talents, or let fear steal their potential day by day. You were never meant to hide, he said. The sentence echoed in your mind like a bell. You were never meant to hide. It felt like a truth you had always known but never dared to say. How many times had you been passionate about something but talked yourself out of it? How many times had you given up on your dreams because you thought others were more deserving, more talented, more capable? You have a strength, he whispered, that you constantly underestimate. You looked down at your hands, imagining that invisible flame you had felt earlier. Maybe the fire wasn't something that suddenly appeared. Maybe it had always been there, waiting for you to stop convincing yourself you didn't deserve to shine. You feel like you're behind, he said, reading the unspoken thoughts in your heart. Like you should have accomplished more by now. Like time is slipping through your fingers. You nodded slightly, feeling the truth pierce deeper, but listen to me carefully. The wind around him stilled. Even the imagined sky seemed to listen. You are not late. You are exactly on time. You are arriving at the beginning of a chapter that could only be written now, not earlier. Because now you have the wisdom, the scars, the resilience, the understanding you never had before. Your throat tightened with emotion. The idea felt both comforting and overwhelming. You think the universe has forgotten you, he added gently. But the truth is, this is the moment it has been preparing you for. A shiver ran through you, not from cold but recognition. The fictional scene, the symbolic angel, the glowing sky, none of it felt like fantasy anymore. It felt like a mirror reflecting truths you had ignored. It felt like someone had taken all the doubts, fears, and quiet hopes inside you and turned them into a story you could finally understand, and somewhere inside that story, you began to see yourself differently, not as someone waiting for a miracle, but as someone capable of creating one. You stood silently, absorbing the words, feeling a quiet tension in your chest loosen. It wasn't the tension of danger or panic, it was the tension of holding yourself back, of believing the lies you had been told or told yourself. The Archangel's presence was steady, like a reminder that the strength you sought had never truly left you. You have been afraid, he said softly, not of the world, not of failure, but of yourself. Of the power you carry quietly, hidden beneath doubts, routines, and distractions. Of what would happen if you actually dared to live fully. The sentence landed in your mind like a stone in water, creating concentric ripples that reached parts of you hadn't touched in years. You thought about the times you had shied away from opportunities. Not because you weren't capable, but because your own self-doubt whispered lies stronger than any encouragement you received. You thought of moments when fear disguised itself as prudence, as reason, as logic, and how easily you had obeyed it. The worst thing that can happen, Michael continued, is not failure. It is not the absence of control. It is living a life that doesn't reflect who you really are. That is the real loss. You felt a lump in your throat. The truth hurt, not because it was painful, but because it was familiar. You had always known, deep down, that fear of your own power had kept you small. That hiding, shrinking, and pretending to be ordinary had cost you moments you could never reclaim. But, he said, and this time his voice held a glimmer of warmth, you can choose differently. You can open the door you have kept closed for so long. You can step into the version of your life that waits on the other side. That version has always been waiting for you. For a moment, the world around you disappeared. All the distractions, all the noise, all the endless what-ifs vanished, leaving only the door he spoke of, a door not in the literal sense, but a metaphorical threshold within yourself. A decision point. A call to action. You realized, suddenly, that the countdown in the message, 10 minutes, as it said, was never about time. It was about readiness. It was about recognizing that each moment you delay, each day you spend shrinking instead of growing, is a moment lost. The bad thing the message warned about was symbolic. It was the passing of opportunity, the theft of potential, the quiet decay of a life unlived, and so, he said, spreading his wings gently, you are being reminded, you have everything you need to begin. You have courage, even if it feels small. You have experience, even if it feels insufficient. You have heart, even if it has been bruised. And you have now. The word echoed inside you, now. Not tomorrow, not when conditions were perfect, not when fear felt absent. Now. This moment was enough. And, strangely, that thought made your heart swell. Not with certainty, but with possibility. With the raw, undeniable sense that life had been holding space for you, patiently, for this very instant. You have been waiting for a sign, he said, thinking that some extraordinary event must occur for you to move forward. But the truth is, you have been looking in the wrong direction. The sign was never outside. It was always inside. You opening this message, you reading these words, you listening now, this is the sign. The universe is not asking you to wait. It is asking you to act. You could feel the weight of his gaze, not judgmental, not demanding, just aware, knowing, infinite. You understood that the message was a gift, a symbolic wake-up call. A nudge from your own deepest self cloaked in the language of angels and warnings. It was urging you to stop shrinking, stop hesitating, stop pretending life was something that happened to you instead of something you could shape. You have fears, he continued, but they are not enemies. They are markers. They tell you where the growth is waiting. Do not run from them. Step toward them. Every step toward your fear is a step into your strength. You thought about every fear you had carried. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of inadequacy. Fear of the unknown. And, for the first time, you considered that maybe those fears were not chains but invitations. That each fear you faced, each challenge you met, each moment you refused to shrink in the face of uncertainty, was a path to something larger than yourself. You will stumble, he said gently. You will feel doubt. You will face moments when the old habits of fear try to pull you back. That is not failure. That is part of the process. The measure of your life is not perfection, it is courage. The measure of your life is not certainty, it is persistence. The measure of your life is not the absence of darkness, it is your willingness to shine within it. You inhaled, feeling a steady flame ignite inside your chest. Not a sudden, blinding fire, but a slow, powerful glow that grew with every word, every thought, every heartbeat. You understood that this moment, this symbolic encounter, this imagined warning, this metaphorical message, was a call to action. Not external, not dramatic, but internal and profound. Now is the time, he said. Now is the time to stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for conditions to be perfect. Stop waiting for a sign from outside yourself. The sign is you. You are the message. You are the power. You are the change you seek. And as he stepped back, letting his wings fold gently, you felt something shift. Not magically, not as if the world had transformed around you, but in a quieter, more profound way. You felt ready. Not ready in the sense that everything was solved, but ready in the sense that you could finally begin. That beginning did not require anyone else's approval, did not need perfect timing, did not depend on circumstances. It only required your willingness to step forward, one small courageous act at a time. You opened your eyes fully now, back in your own room, in your own life. The message, the angel, the countdown, they were not real in the literal sense. But the fire, the possibility, the awakening inside you, they were. And they would remain, as long as you chose to act on them. You realized something incredible: the danger the message spoke of had passed. The true danger, the danger of living small, was no longer inevitable. Because you had heard it. You had understood it. And most importantly, you had chosen to respond. A smile spread across your face, not because life had suddenly changed, but because you had. And in that moment, you knew that this was only the beginning. That the next steps, however small or uncertain, would carry you toward the life you had been meant to live all along. The Archangel, the message, the warning, they were not outside you. They were always inside you, waiting for you to notice. Waiting for you to open the door. Waiting for you to ignite the light that had always been there, and now, at last, you had. As the glow of that realization settled in, you felt a strange clarity begin to fill the spaces in your mind that had long been clouded with doubt. Life no longer seemed like a series of random events that happened to you. It began to feel like a canvas waiting for your brushstrokes. Every choice, every action, every thought carried weight, significance, and potential. You remembered the countless moments you had spent waiting for someone else to validate your dreams, for circumstances to be perfect, for fear to disappear. You had been waiting for years, and now, suddenly, you understood that nothing outside yourself had ever needed to change. The power, the courage, the spark of action, it had always been within you. The air around you seemed to hum softly, not with actual sound, but with the resonance of possibility. The 10 minutes in the original message now felt like an emblem, a symbol of how fragile opportunity can be if ignored, how fleeting clarity can feel if not acted upon. The urgency wasn't in the passage of time, it was in the recognition that the present moment is all that truly exists, and it is the only moment in which transformation can occur. You imagined Archangel Michael again, standing silently just beyond the edge of perception. He was no longer a figure of awe or intimidation. He was a reflection of the truth you were beginning to claim, that strength is quiet, courage is patient, and clarity does not shout, it shows. You have been waiting for the world to change, he said in your mind, but the world will not change until you do. The life you want, the fulfillment you crave, the dreams you've silenced, they are waiting for you to step forward. And the door is already open. The words weren't instructions or commands, they were an invitation. Not to something external, but to yourself. You realized that the bad thing the message warned of was not a disaster, a misfortune, or a calamity, it was the life unlived. The moments wasted in hesitation, the opportunities missed while waiting for certainty, the quiet resignation that comes from believing you are small. You remembered every time you had dismissed your instincts, ignored your passions, or silenced your voice. Each memory now seemed like a thread, weaving together a fabric that had been held back by fear. And yet, even as you acknowledged that, you felt no shame. There was only understanding, and a soft surge of determination. The fire inside you, the voice said, is not a fleeting spark. It is a force that grows with attention, with action, with the courage to keep moving forward even when the path is unclear. Every step you take toward your potential, every choice you make that reflects your truth, strengthens that fire. And it will guide you through challenges that seem impossible, fears that feel overwhelming, and doubts that feel endless. You took a deep breath and felt the weight of years lift slightly from your shoulders. It wasn't that life would become easy, far from it. But you understood something more profound: ease was never the measure of success. Resilience, courage, and authenticity were. And those things, unlike circumstance, were yours to cultivate. You thought about the small steps you could take immediately. The moments where action, however tiny, could break the inertia that had held you captive. You realized that motivation alone was not enough. It was the combination of awareness and action that mattered. One choice at a time, one step at a time, you could transform hesitation into momentum, fear into strength, and potential into reality. And then, as if to emphasize the point, the voice whispered again, softer this time, your life is not a waiting room. It is a stage, a canvas, a path that exists to be walked fully. Step into it. Step into yourself. Step into your own light. You imagine the fire in your chest growing, expanding beyond the confines of your body, radiating into your mind, your surroundings, your possibilities. You weren't just alive, you were awakening. Not through magic, not through external intervention, but through the simple, profound act of realizing that the door was open, that the choice was yours, and that now, this moment, was enough. For the first time in what felt like years, you didn't feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down. You felt the lightness of readiness, the subtle exhilaration of agency, the quiet power of claiming your own life. The countdown was over, not because time had passed, but because the moment had arrived. And with it, clarity, courage, and purpose. You opened your eyes fully, grounded in the present, aware of your own heartbeat, your own breath, your own strength. The world outside hadn't changed: traffic, noise, obligations, routines, all of it remained the same. But you had changed. Your perspective had shifted. The doorway Michael spoke of was no longer metaphorical, it was real in every decision, every step, and every intention you would take from this moment onward, and deep inside, you knew that life from this point forward would be different, not because the world had bent to your will, but because you had bent toward your own. You had claimed your power, embraced your path, and recognized the truth. that the only thing standing between you and a life fully lived was the courage to step through the door you had always carried within yourself, and so, with a steadying breath and a heart alight with quiet fire, you took that first step. The first step felt heavier than you expected, and yet lighter at the same time. Heavy with the weight of years spent holding yourself back, and light with the liberation of finally moving forward. It was as if every hesitation you had ever felt, every doubt that had whispered in your ear, had been condensed into that single moment, and now, by stepping forward, you released it. You realized that the fire Archangel Michael had spoken of wasn't something external. It was your own energy, your own courage, your own capacity for persistence and love. It had been inside you all along, waiting only for recognition, for acknowledgement, for the choice to let it guide you, and yet, you also understood something vital: awareness alone was not enough. The fire needed fuel, action, and consistency. You could no longer sit passively and hope for transformation to come from outside. The universe, your dreams, your future, they were waiting for movement. Waiting for the courage of your first intentional choice. Waiting for your commitment to the journey rather than the comfort of waiting. You thought about all the small ways life had tested you up to this point. Every challenge, every setback, every failure that had felt like punishment now appeared differently. They had been preparation. They had been shaping you into someone ready to take this step. And now, with clarity and purpose, you could see that what you had considered obstacles were. In truth, teachers, do not fear imperfection, the voice said, soft and steady, as if it were speaking directly to the chamber of your heart. Do not fear mistakes. Do not fear what others may think. These are the trials of the soul, the necessary friction that sharpens your resolve, strengthens your vision, and illuminates the path forward. The real danger is stagnation. The real loss is refusing to engage with the life that is yours to live. You felt that warning settle into you like a seed planting itself deep in the soil of your being. You understood, without argument, that action, even imperfect, even tentative, was infinitely more valuable than hesitation. Even a single step taken in alignment with your truth could ripple across days, weeks, months, and years, creating momentum you had once thought impossible. You imagined what it would feel like to live fully, to embrace your gifts, to trust your instincts, to pursue your dreams relentlessly, and to do so with the understanding that missteps were part of the journey rather than signs of failure. That vision lit your chest like a lantern, steady, warm, and unwavering, and then, you imagined the people, places, and experiences that had always drawn your attention, the passions you had silenced, the ideas you had dismissed. They weren't random, they were invitations. Clues. Signs pointing toward the life that awaited if only you acted. Every creative impulse, every call for exploration. Every quiet pull toward growth and contribution was part of the map, waiting for you to follow it. You are not too late, Michael said. You are not too young, too old, too inexperienced, too flawed. You are ready. You are prepared. You are exactly where you are meant to be. You felt a surge of gratitude, not for external circumstances, not for rewards or recognition, but for yourself. For the resilience that had carried you through the darkest nights. For the courage that had quietly flickered even when you could not see it. For the heart that had survived disappointment and still sought connection, purpose, and expression, and for the first time, you recognized that your life was not a series of unrelated events. It was a continuous, unfolding story, and you were the author, the hero, and the guide. You could shape the narrative with intention, with love, with courage. You could choose meaning. You could choose action. You could choose yourself. The thought of stepping back, returning to old habits, or letting fear dictate your choices now seemed unbearable. You realized that the message had done its work. The countdown, the warning, the symbolic threat, it had been a catalyst, a wake-up call. But the real transformation would come from your commitment to act, persist, and rise. And so, you made a promise, not to anyone else, not to fate, not to the world, but to yourself. A promise that you would no longer wait passively. That you would honor the fire inside you. That you would embrace challenges as opportunities. That you would confront fear with courage, hesitation with action, and uncertainty with faith in your own abilities. You could not see the entire path ahead. You could not know all the outcomes. But you knew that each step taken with intention, each choice made with awareness, each moment approached with courage, would shape the life you wanted to live. That was enough. The room around you felt different now, not because it had changed, but because you had. The light felt warmer. The air felt clearer. Your own heartbeat felt stronger. The journey had begun, and it was yours, for the first time in a long time. You didn't feel like a passive observer of life. You felt like a participant, an active creator, a force moving steadily forward, guided by the fire that had always been inside you, and with that, you knew one truth above all: the greatest danger had passed. The real challenge, the one that mattered, was already behind you. You had faced it simply by opening, by noticing, by deciding to step forward.